Like, you would think that going to the emergency room would get you to who you needed to see, other than an allergist. You're listening to the Calm, the Storm, the Whimsy podcast.
All right, you both know that I have 5 children, 2 of which have asthma, right?
Yes.
So that takes me down this really stressful road of they played in the grass, we could end up in the hospital. They have a cold, we could end up in the hospital. They smelled smoke at a bonfire, we could end up in the hospital. So it's very overwhelming, especially when they're really little, and it goes from 0 to 60. So they could be fine, or they could be like, you better get them there, or they could die. Like, that's literally what I've dealt with since Nora was born.
Gosh.
So I was looking back, and that I remember Nora was in the hospital one year 22 times.
I remember that.
And 2, I think 3 admissions for Nora. 1 was in the ICU. That was just 1 year, though. That doesn't count urgent care for her. That doesn't count doctor's appointments. That only was hospital visits. 4 admissions, 22 times at the ER. And that was partly because I was learning about asthma. So we were there a lot more than I should have been, but I didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't want to over-medicate her on my own. So then I have Grant, and he also has asthma, even though they don't label him as an asthmatic. He for sure is. And I was counting today on my chart. He's been to the hospital in 19 months, 9 times, 2 admissions, and that doesn't count urgent care or the doctor, which has been multiple times. So after all those hospital visits with 2 kids, after going to the hospital and knowing what I'm talking about now with asthma, and I will say, like 22 times to 9 times, like there's been improvement because we know how to control it at home.
And you have the things at home where you might not have had them at first with Nora. But
with Nora, it took 22 times in the hospital to get a breathing machine at home.
It took that many times?
And I had to beg. So 9 times with Grant being in the hospital. And I remember the last time I went, I cried the whole time, which I don't normally cry, but I cried the whole time. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I'm so tired. I don't know what's wrong with him. And the poor nurse, like the check-in lady, was like calming me down, rubbing my back. Like I was a mess. And it was the time that he was so bad that none of the medication was working. They had to use magnesium and an IV, which has never happened before for my kids. And they were like, he's not even responding to the treatment. And they really scared me. And so I said, like, what else is there? Like, can you please help me? And so the reason we go to the hospital all the time is because they have a breathing treatment called a duoneb. And so at home, I can do albuterol. At the hospital, you can do something called a duoneb, which is albuterol mixed with another kind of breathing medicine. And that's usually all they need to kick it. So when I go to the hospital, I go knowing that I'm going to say to them, you're going to give them the duoneb. His oxygen's going to go down. His heart rate's going to skyrocket, but we're still going home because he'll be fine. This is what it does to him, but it's what he needs to like kick it. But he also ends up on steroids all the time. So I pleaded with them at the last one. And I think that you were talking to Ashley, who was talking to someone who, I don't know why this person knows.
At the hospital,
okay.
I think.
So she said, tell them you want to see a pulmonologist. I've never, even with Nora, we never saw a pulmonologist. We only ever went to allergy, which I didn't really fully understand the difference. So I asked, and lungs. Yeah. So I asked, and they were like, okay, we'll give you a referral. So they did. So I went to the pulmonologist this past week, and she talked me through everything. And I'm like, I am terrified of my son getting a steroid every other month, like the oral steroid. They're so bad. I said, I have a friend whose kid has been sick like this their whole childhood, and now she's really struggling because she's been on steroids like her whole childhood. And I am stressed out giving this to him every other month. And she's like, yeah, that's not okay. So she's like, I'm going to give you a daily preventative inhaler that has a little bit of albuterol in it, but it's like a micro dose, not even close to the oral dose. Like, she talked me through all this stuff. She was amazing. But every time I've gone to the hospital and said, I know I have to come here because I need the Duonub, and everybody has always told me, yeah, you can't have that medicine at home because we have to watch them for multiple hours. And she said, so you've given them Duonubs before? And I said, well, yeah, at the emergency room, but I know that I can't have that at home. No one will give it to me. And she's like, I will.
What?
And I said, excuse me? I was always told that was like, absolutely not. She's like, oh, no.
I bet it's because emergency med doesn't know all of the things that it does.
Or it's an emergency room visit.
Or it's money in their pocket.
So she said, the thing is, she said, I wouldn't give it to a first-time mom that has an asthma kid because you do have to monitor the kid. She's like, but I can tell you know what you're talking about. I can tell you've been there a million times. She said, you just like spoke to me educated about the
what
oxygen
happens to
and the
him
heart and all that. So she's like, you know, this is like a last resort. If you're about to go to the hospital, just do this instead. She's like, why would we send you for a 10th time to the hospital with your baby? It's the worst place he could be. Like, you can treat him at home. And I called my husband and he's like, are you kidding me?
All this time.
The amount of times I've been in the hospital and they have never told me that that was an option.
Or even referred you to a pulmonologist.
Nope.
Like, you would think that going to the emergency room would get you to who you needed to see, other than an allergist.
I feel like it's after like 5 times, not 22, not 10.
Like, we know you by name.
Yeah.
And we know what's happening. So we're going to get you to the doctor that you need to see.
Same with the breathing machine. I had to beg for that. Can I have that? Because they said when they're in distress, using the breathing machine is 4 puffs to the 2 in the inhaler. So it like kicks them out of it.
Yeah.
Oh,
so instead, I'm driving to the hospital praying that my kid is okay on the way.
Breathing in the back seat in a car seat.
So half of me is irritated because it's been years and years and years. And then half of me is like, praise Jesus that I don't have to go to the hospital all the time anymore.
How often does he see her?
Every like 4 months.
Okay.
But I was like, I just want you to know, I feel like I've gotten more help in this appointment. She explained things to me super well. She was so amazing. I said more in this appointment than I have in 10 years.
Yeah, well, that could have helped
So
Nora.
should Nora be seeing a pulmonologist?
Probably not anymore.
Okay.
Because
she's fine now. Not fine,
Is she growing out of it?
I think so. But the one thing that she also told me that no one else has ever told me is the inhalers. So anybody that has asthma that is listening to this right now, that has never gone to a pulmonologist, you need to hear this. If you don't use the spacer, she said the inhalers send the medicine to all sorts of different parts of your body because you're not breathing in the medication the right way. If you use the spacer, it's like you're just breathing normally and pulling it in and it's going right to your lungs. The spacer, you like suck it. And she said, if you don't know how to breathe it in the right way, it gets stuck in your mouth. It gets stuck in the back of your throat. It gets stuck in all these areas and it doesn't go straight to your lungs. She said, grandma should be using an inhaler with a spacer every time she uses it.
Wait, that mask?
Yep. That big long tube with a mask, because that's the only way you truly breathe in the medication the right way.
Wow.
Aaron Ewell, did you hear that?
Yeah. So he still gets the medicine when he breathes it just through the inhaler, but it goes other places as well that it's not supposed to go. Oh. And so Nora doesn't use a spacer, but now she's going to. So,
wow.
That's my story.
Wow.
It's crazy. It's about
stinking time. Say what you want to say.
It's about stinking time.
That's crazy. Thank you for listening to the Calm, the Storm, the Whimsy podcast. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Facebook, and Instagram. Stay tuned for our next episode.
can't anymore with you. Just take me back to my bubble. Take me back. Okay.
Oh, my.
I'm not going to sleep tonight.
AI is nothing compared to that.
Well, haven't you seen Mrs. Doubtfire? Anyone can do it.
Yeah, she even makeshifts her boobs.
Until they catch on
How
fire.
many times are boobs fake?
Oh, are they plastic vessels?
Oh, with mold?
Microplastics.
Don't put your mouth on them.